What's up, Warriors fans, and welcome back to Warriors Latest. As always, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell if you enjoy the show today, as I do post new Warriors videos daily, and it does help the channel continue to grow as the season moves along. Now, we're facing the Magic tonight, and originally I thought this was going to be a bad matchup for the Warriors, but after what happened over the weekend, I'm thinking, the more I've thought about it at least, I think this could be a very good win for the Warriors, especially going into the Heat game in a couple of days, where the Heat, they're just the Heat, and they're always going to be hot, and they're always going to give the Warriors trouble. I still remember back in the day when the Heat were one of those teams that gave the early season Kevin Durant Warriors a lot of trouble because they know how to win ball games as a team. So a win like this against Orlando is going to be very, very beneficial, and considering where they're at, they're only a 500 team right now at 7-7. And yes, the season is still early, but luckily for the Warriors, they're the Magic have been bitten by the injury bug pretty badly. Now, looking at their lineup, all right, we got Jalen Suggs, who's their primary on-ball defender, very solid guy. He's a game-time decision. And Moritz Wagner and Paolo Banchero are both out tonight. So I do look forward to seeing how well the Warriors can adjust to the constant, rotations that Orlando will throw at them. Even though Jonathan Kuminga is out and Buddy Hield is a game-time decision, I feel like it won't affect the Warriors that much, considering how much progress Moses Moody, Will Richard, and several other players have made to be a supplement to Steph and Jimmy and Draymond. So I see that going well. What I do want to see, though, is, again, I've talked about this over and over, I want to see Quentin Post get some more minutes. Yes, you can have the likes of Al Horford there. You can mix in Draymond there. At least with this game, you could do it a little more, because looking at Orlando's roster, their size isn't as big as I originally thought. They do have Goga I still don't know how. Well, they have Goga. I still don't know how to say his last name. Their next biggest guy is Jonathan Isaac at 6'10". They have Wendell Carter Jr., who's also 6'10", but they have Paolo Banchero, who's 6'10". Yeah, they have a lot of big guys. Franz is 6'10", but they also have guys that there's no overt size advantage. They do have a lot of 6'10", 6'11" guys, but they have no clear 7-footers, and I think that's going to be beneficial to what the Warriors are going to do tonight in trying to defeat the Magic. Now, right now, it's sort of a pretty even line. Looking at it, I believe it was 52 to 52.7 to 47.3 on the matchup predictor. And you know what? For me, that's pretty even. That's a little bit of a home advantage, but you know what? In Orlando, I'm not that confident, especially with Orlando being a 500 team. We all expected them to just come out of the gates storming and be a top 3 seed because of Boston sort of falling out with their, I guess we'll call it a gap year, and Milwaukee losing Dame, but it hasn't really been that way. They've been treading water at 500. Yes, they beat the Knicks last week, but they haven't really done much outside of that. So I do like the Warriors' chances on beating them tonight, and I'd give them a 75% chance at winning because the Warriors are a very seasoned team. They haven't really been bitten by the injury bug outside of the guys that are already out in D'Anthony Melton and Kuminga. And unfortunately, Kuminga, he's not capitalized. He capitalized early on his opportunities, but Moses Moody has really stepped up, and so has Will Richard, to really push him out of the lineup. And unfortunately, it's looking like he's going to find himself a new team come January, February. So that's going to be that, and Warriors are going to move on. But back to what I was saying. I want them to play Quentin Post heavier minutes, whether it be his last few games, he's played single-digit minutes, and that doesn't benefit him at all. Yes, we're here to win games, but let's see him get that advantage and use that size advantage over the likes of Wendell Carter Jr., over the likes of Franz Wagner, over the likes of Goga. Just be able to get physical, draw them out, and allow opportunities for Draymond and Jimmy to get to the basket while they're at the while Quentin is at the 3-point line. We already know that Al Horford is going to do that. But Horford, let's give him a little bit of rest, only 20 minutes tonight, and at least give the experience to Quentin where it's needed. Because if he gets that proper experience, things are going to go well for him. And I'm very confident in his ability to at least become a starting caliber center with the Warriors. Now, on a different note, I did see a little article the other day that really vindicated my thoughts on the Lauri Markkanen trade market over the summer. And that was Draymond Green saying, don't trade for Lauri. Because his biggest thing, and I said this multiple times, was nobody wins in any dealings with Danny Ainge. Like I said before, he wants an arm, a leg, your firstborn child, your entire savings account, and then your house. He's that kind of general manager. He always wants to draw blood to the point where you can call him Count Dracula. That's how much he loves doing trades, and I won't say ripping people off, but taking advantage of them. Because let's be honest, he took full advantage of the Nets when he traded away Kevin Garnett, Jason Terry, and Paul Pierce. That was a great deal. He took full advantage of the Timberwolves when he traded Rudy Gobert there. He took full advantage of the Cavs when he traded Donovan Mitchell there, and he got some great players back. Lauri Markkanen was one of those guys he got back in exchange for Donovan Mitchell, and that was a great trade. Now they're stocked with draft picks. Now, in my personal opinion, draft picks aren't what they used to be. They're not as valuable as they were, say, 5 years ago, because they're so hit or miss these days that the investment overall, like you look at how much rookie contracts are for, would you rather have a rookie contract or with, all right, let me put it this way. Would you rather have a guy on an expensive rookie contract, say top 10 player, or bring in a seasoned vet who, you know what, can give you that same energy for the same amount of time, but has a little more experience within the league? Yes, the potential for a young rookie becoming great is there, but you have to have a proper development team in order for him to reach his potential. And a lot of the times they expect him just to be good. And these new kids coming out of the draft aren't good right off the bat. It's like, you know what, next? I mean, look at Cooper Flagg. He's a great player, but he's not really hitting on all cylinders right off the bat. And that's a bit of a problem, especially when you're as hyped up as he was this past year. Now, personally, I look at draft picks. There's always a lot of hype behind them, and unless they're an absolute sure thing like Victor Wembanyama was, I take everything with a grain of salt. Granted, I wasn't overly high on Paolo Banchero, but he's proved me wrong. I look at, 2024, those two guys with Alexander Sarr and Zachary, whatever his name is, still on the fence about them. Cooper Flagg, still on the fence. 2021, Cade Cunningham proved me wrong. He's coming into his own, but the idea, they have to develop these players properly in order for them to reach their potential. You just can't have a bunch of draft picks and expect them all to hit. And Danny Ainge is a guy who doesn't really hit on a lot of his draft picks. He misses a lot, but he does have one or two good hits. So I'll give credit where the credit's due. But you don't want to trade with a guy like that who's going to try and bleed you out of draft picks, bleed you out of young players, and then, you know what, try and win the trade right off the bat, because it's just going to hurt you both in the short and the long term. And that's something the Warriors really don't need right now. So I'm glad that at least Draymond came out and said it. You know what? Don't trade with Danny Ainge. You're only going to get screwed over in the long run, and it just is not worth it. So let's find another suitor if we do trade Jonathan Kuminga. And maybe, you know what, we may get something better in return that helps us both in the short and the long term as well. So thank you, Draymond, for vindicating me. Now, I did see something interesting as well, and that was apparently Victor Wembanyama hurt his calf Friday against the Dubs. I don't know if that was from that one play against Draymond where he was just getting super physical and he takes the lob and throws it in on his tippy toes. It would be funny if it was, but because of this injury, he's out a number of weeks and then is going to be reevaluated. And this is a golden opportunity for the Warriors. Ironic, isn't it? But the reason it's an opportunity is because, like I said before, the Spurs are that team. They are the team to be reckoned with, I would say more so than the Thunder. Yes, the Thunder do have that experience, but the Spurs, they have that eye test. I remember watching that Thunder game last week. They looked great. They looked in sync, but they didn't look nearly as good as this Spurs team. And this injury is another big one because the injury bug is now biting the Spurs very early on in the season, and the Warriors need to take full advantage of that because this opportunity is going to cause, this injury is going to cause the Spurs to fall down the standings because now they're out Dylan Harper, they're out Steph Castle because he's sort of game time decision / out right now, and now they're out Wembanyama. And with that, they do have a solid bench to pick up the slack in Keldon Johnson, Devin Vassell, as well as De'Aaron Fox. But that hole in the middle that they now have, they're working with Luke Cornett and Kelly Olynyk. Don't get me wrong, those are great role players, but they can't fill the void that Wembanyama leaves now that he's injured for a number of weeks. And as they slide down the standings, which they inevitably will, the Warriors should take this opportunity to just attack. Because if they continue to win and put on some streaks here and there, they're going to have the opportunity to be a top 3 seed come the Christmas Day games, as was predicted on the ESPN preseason prediction line. So this is their opportunity to take real advantage and at least be a significant threat to the top-seeded Oklahoma City Thunder and say, hey, we're here. You better be aware. Because we look at the other teams, there's a lot of closeness between 1 and 3 in the standings. Like looking at it now, hold on, let me get this up. Looking at it now, there's not a lot of distance. So this is the Warriors' opportunity to really put some distance between them and the rest of the league. Now, looking at it, where are they? The Warriors are currently sitting at 7. But the difference between 7 and 2 is currently 2 games. Now, if the Warriors get hot real quick, they could be the number 2 overall seed. Because looking at it, in the wins column, they're only behind Denver by 1. And in the loss column, they're only behind Denver by 3. So it's not that bad. But they do, if they just capitalize on these opportunities, especially tonight versus the Magic, they can be a real threat to the Thunder's supremacy in the Western Conference. And having already looking at it, they beat the Lakers, they beat the Spurs, they beat Denver. They've beaten the Suns. They know what they're doing against these teams. And all the teams down below, looking at Sacramento, New Orleans, Dallas, they're just bottom feeders right now. Dallas, like I said, is eventually going to do a huge fire sale sooner or later. They're going to trade Anthony Davis. They're going to trade Kyrie Irving. They're just going to completely blow it up after this complete fumble of a start of a season where it's like even I expected them to be very good because 1 through 5, they had a solid starting lineup, especially putting Cooper Flagg in a position with veterans around him to succeed. So I definitely expect them to take full advantage of this big opportunity now that the Spurs are going to be continuously falling. So I'm looking forward to seeing what happens. But bottom line is they do need to like I said before, they do need to capitalize on every single opportunity, whether that be shorthanded games against solid teams like the Magic, whether they go up against teams like the Heat and take full advantage of a mismatch that they see both on the offensive and defensive end. They find ways to stretch the floor. They give Quentin Post more minutes in order to stretch the floor as well as guard some of those big men. They need to take advantage of every big opportunity they have because every opportunity is going to be key for them winning the NBA title this year. Because if they don't take advantage of every single opportunity and capitalize on those, they're just a pretender. They're not a contender. Now, that's all we have today for Warriors Latest. As always, if you enjoyed the show today, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. And if you have any ideas on certain games the Warriors should capitalize on where they don't really realize they could, feel free to comment below as I love hearing your ideas. And as always, go Dubs.